Destination Nightmare, the B-Movie Podcast.
Anyway, what's today's movie?
Today's movie is Comedy of Terrors.
Comedy of Terrors, starring Vincent Price and Peter Lorre and Basil Rathbone and Boris Karloff and Joyce Jameson.
Yes,
Buff is in it.
Was one of the Funtime girls on the Andy Griffith Show.
Did you read about her?
No.
Oh man, she was apparently. I never saw her on Andy Griffith Show. I don't even know what the Funtime Girls was. What is that? I don't even.
There's two. Barney and Andy were having problems with Thelma Lou and Helen, their girlfriends. So Barney went out and picked up these two brash blondes who were like floozies and very loud, and they were man hungry and stuff, and so Barney's all for it, and Andy's like trying to get away from them, and then they were trying to hide the girl, Thelma Lou and Helen decided to make up with Barney and Andy, so they tried to get rid of the Funtime Girls. Just, typical Mayberry hijinks. So
I never saw that episode.
Yeah, they were just like barflies, floozy women.
That's what it sounded like, but I just didn't know what the deal was or whatever. Yeah, I read about her. She did a lot of television and movies, but I guess she was like Robert Vaughn's girlfriend for a while or whatever, and she ended up committing suicide in her 50s. I guess she was real depressed or something. It was like shocking to me. I go, really, her? Yeah. But yeah, it was kind of weird. But she was in a lot of TV shows, including, like you said, Andy Griffith and obviously The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and a lot of stuff.
Big Valley, Virginia, Gomer Pyle, Dick Van Dyke Show, Munsters. Here's Lucy, moving on, Rockford Files. Well, holy Hannah!
Yeah, well, she killed herself in the 80s. I don't know what year it was, but it was in the 80s. So it was kind of weird, when you read that, it's like, oh, really? Oh, I never really thought. I mean, everybody in this movie, for the most part, were in the one before this, which is Tales of Terror.
Yeah.
Which is probably the movie we should have watched, because it's probably the better movie. But one of the reasons I wanted to watch is because I saw Beverly Hills was in this movie. Now, Beverly Hills was basically she had, like, she was listed in the cast at the beginning, and she's basically in one scene. She's the wife of the guy that they killed, and then she just like picks up and leaves before they can get the money. At the beginning of the movie?
Yeah, she was in 2 episodes, actually. Well, the first one was Vincent Price sees her sleeping, and she's making moaning noises. And the second one, she's standing by the bed of the dead guy, and
that's
again,
it.
She's not understanding what...
I thought she was actually going to have a part in this movie.
I did too.
She didn't do anything. I was like, okay.
So at least the Joyce Jameson role, but
Joyce Jameson had a big role, in this movie, But Beverly Hills was in, I guess she started out as being a famous or infamous Hollywood stripper. And then she got into television. She was on a bunch of Red Skelton shows, and she was in a few Jack Benny shows, and she did Men's Magazine. She's an interesting character. And then I saw that she did this movie. I go, I wanted to see what she's in. She didn't do anything. She was in one of those Blood Island movies, like Brides of Blood or whatever, the first one. I was
yeah. Okay.
She was a blonde, like, nympho girl, a wife of Kent Taylor or whatever.
Right.
And then she was in Invasion of the B-Girls later on. She did a lot, but she was also in Invasion of the B-Girls later on in the 70s or whatever. And then it was like, wow, and I was like, okay, I was kind of hoping she would have like a better role in this, but it's like, oh, okay, kind of a downer or whatever. She's like a minister now in Hawaii or something, you know. But yeah, I mean, the movie's basically like, you know, Boris Karloff, Joyce Jameson, Basil Rathbone, Peter Lorre, and Vincent Price, you know.
Oh, and don't forget Joe E. Brown in his last appearance.
And Rhubarb the cat.
And Rhubarb the cat.
Now, was Rhubarb, like, was there a movie about him or something like that, cat?
The cat's real name is Orangey.
Okay.
But for some reason he was billed as Rhubarb. That was his first movie. I think it was Ray Milland. And the cat inherits money or a baseball team or something. I don't know.
Oh, it was that movie?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh,
and then
okay.
he was into a whole bunch of movies in TV shows. I think he was in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh, that cat was? Oh, yeah. Okay.
And let's see.
Yeah, I remember seeing that movie, and I remember that cat. So that was him. Also, he's a pretty famous.
He was in Visit to a Small Planet.
Jerry Lewis.
With Jerry Lewis. Breakfast at Tiffany's. Comedy Terrors. Village of the Giants.
Another AIP movie.
He was the cat in The Incredible Shrinking Man.
And really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And, Alfred Hitchcock. The Dick Van Dyke Show. Beverly Hillbillies. My Favorite Martian. Batman. Mission Impossible. Wow.
Rhubarb was a hell of a cat then.
Yep.
So he was a cat that attacked Grant Williams when he shrunk down to.
The last one that they thought that he was eaten by the cat. That's the cat Rhubarb. He was also known as, where the hell was it? I just saw it. Jimmy, Jeremy, and Rhubarb.
Wow, pretty famous cat.
Yeah.
The Incredible Shrinking Man is a very depressing movie.
Oh my God, is it ever? It's supposed to end on a big note where, you know, the guy's saying even though he's small, he's becoming one with the universe, or whatever the hell the thing was. But
yeah, what is that all about?
I don't know. I think he was going down to the molecular level, but
that's what I'm thinking. He went into the microscopic world or something.
Yeah, but somehow was also his mind was expanding. I don't know. I mean, it was some weird one of those philosophical,
metaphysical thing or whatever.
But the rest of it was depressing as hell.
It is depressing as hell. It's like whenever I watch it, I'm like, oh man, this poor guy. For no reason, he was just on a boat and he gets like hit with like radiation or something. And he's shrinking.
A cloud.
I've never actually sat down and read about what the theme was. The book is it what I think it's Richard Matheson who wrote The Shrinking Man. What the theme was, and Richard Matheson wrote this movie too. Yeah. But it was just like, that's a totally depressing movie. Yeah. It's a great movie, but it's just,
Yeah, it's very depressing. Yeah, Richard Matheson, I mean, he was super prolific. He wrote for Twilight Zone.
Yep.
He wrote for almost everything, I think.
He wrote for television. He wrote for the AIP movies. He wrote books.
Yeah.
You know, short story books. Yeah, he wrote the I Am Legend. That was Richard Matheson. You know, I'm sure he was. I think he wrote X with the Man with the X-Ray Eyes. I'm not 100% sure if he wrote that, but I think he was involved with that. He did a lot of stuff for AIP. He did a few of the Edgar Allan Poe adaptations where he basically took the story and had to do something with it to make it into a 90-minute. Like take the Pendulum, which is a short story. He had to add all this stuff to it to make it into a 90-minute movie. So, you know, that was mostly his,
He wrote, Stir of Echoes.
Okay.
And, Hell House, which, House on Haunted
Legend of Hell House, yep.
What Dreams May Come. Oh, no shit.
He did,
that movie was, with Robin Williams dies and goes to heaven and stuff.
He did that movie?
He wrote the original novel for it.
He's Somewhere in Time, I think, is Richard Matheson.
Yeah.
Last Man on Earth or I Am Legend or, the Omega Man or, Last Man on Earth or whatever. Yeah, the Twilight Zone episodes. He did a few other.
of Twilight Zone. He wrote for Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah, he did the one with Shatner on Twilight Zone. The one where Shatner sees gremlins, and I think he was involved with that one.
Yeah.
No, he did a lot of stuff or whatever. He's a very famous writer. But anyway, I think I read this. This was supposed to this was his take on Comedy of Errors, which was, I guess, a Shakespeare play, which I'd never read. But it also seems like it's a takeoff on the Grave Robbers, Burke and Hare or whatever.
Yeah, and I think he said he's got tired of all the Victorian horror things of premature burial, so he decided to sort of flip it and make it kind of more jokey.
And it didn't do that great for AIP, The humor had a great cast.
The humor, it's in the mid. It was like, what is it, 63 this came out?
Yeah. 63.
That time in like the early to mid 60s, humor was kind of changing.
Yes, it was.
Where before that sort of like slapstick stuff was considered funny. And, it's like your parents would laugh at it, but you would watch and go, I don't get this. So, and then...
That's exactly right.
To I guess a different, like there was a bunch of movies like It's a Mad World.
Yeah, I know. Some people love that movie.
I know. To me, it was boring as hell.
It's like 3 hours or something.
Yeah, and there's another one, Those Magnificent Men in Their Flying Machines.
And they had another one of those magnificent men and there's something jalopies.
Yeah,
or
the
jaunty jalopies.
Yeah, some jaunty young men in whatever the hell it is. I mean, like kind of like over the top comic slapstick, which the parents loved, but I'm like...
Well, you know what it was, too, part of it? We were already reading stuff like Mad Magazine.
Yeah.
Which was a little more, like, intense comedy than this stuff. And it was making fun of these movies, too, so we had, like,
It had more jokey wordplay.
Yeah. It was also snarkier.
A little more modern and I won't say mainstream, but a little more of the time. And stuff, but
I just my opinion of this movie, it's neither that funny, and it's definitely not terrifying. So it's some kind of a weird hybrid of comedy and humor. It's not bad. I mean, it's well done. The actors are all good. The sets are nice. They have matte paintings of the buildings. You could tell they were paintings. And I was like, oh, they did matte paintings, and they had like a scene where like the carriage goes up to it or whatever. I'm like, okay, they went out of their way to do that. Okay, but I read somewhere where like AIP said, comedy and horror, it doesn't really work or whatever, So it's like, oh, okay.
You have to either lean more towards one or the other. This kind of like tread in the middle, and it did neither.
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing. I mean, Basil Rathbone coming back from the dead or was catatonic state. That wasn't really that scary, I don't know. Supposedly Boris Karloff was supposed to play that role, but he couldn't do it.
Yeah, he couldn't do it.
It
was very physical, and he couldn't do the...
So they got Rathbone to do it, and he was fine. He was doing his best or whatever.
It had all the elements.
It had all the elements. There was something missing.
I think if they just tilted it more one way or the other...
They went to the middle ground.
Yeah, and you can't always do that.
No.
You have to, I mean, it was sort of like a bad...
it was like a half-hour show, or
it's like a bad Monsters episode or something.
Yeah, or something like that. Not even as edgy as because everything was like kind of like just kind of like, oh, they're not really grave robbers, are they? Or are they? They're not really like selling the bodies to scientists or whatever. They're just dumping them in another grave and reusing the coffin.
Yeah, when and in fact, the movie starts out like that. They, you see, Peter Lorre and Vincent Price are there. They're dressed in their black funeral garb, and then the widow and the family are crying over the guy in the deceased coffin. And then, they're at the graveyard, and then they leave, and then, Vincent Price and Peter Lorre, like waiting for them to leave. And then it does this comic, was supposed to be comic, scene where they open the coffin, dump the body in the open grave, and then quickly bury it, and then dust off the coffin, put it back in the hearse.
In the hearse.
And it's done in like this sped up style, which, I don't know, it kind of detracted, right away it detracted from the scene. They could have made it a little more creepy.
Exactly.
More like a black comedy rather than just a goofy comedy. Then you probably would have laughed and added a bit more or something.
I mean, because Price did like Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine, and they were like a takeoffs on the beach party movies, and those there was humor in those. Those were kind of funny. They was kind of outrageous, and what this movie needed was something like Don Rickles or somebody like that to like make it.
If it was going to be funny, they needed to push it more towards
an edge.
Yeah, because these guys are not known for being funny.
I mean, they could do it. I mean, they were good at it. I mean, they were decent at it, you know. But
the only comedian they had in it was Joey Brown, who was known for like having a big mouth, and he'd always find a way to go to show off.
Yeah, right.
Which he only did once, and he was all the way almost near the end of the movie.
End of his life too. I think this was his last movie.
I believe this was his last movie. And it's, I don't know, just it looked good.
Sure did.
I was kind of expecting a little better, but it just, and the story wasn't bad either. The story was interesting. They played it a bit too much for laughs. So
maybe it's the director's fault. I mean, I know that Richard Matheson wanted Jacques Tourneur to direct, and he was a good director. He did stuff with Val Lewton in the 40s and stuff like that. But I don't know. Maybe he was just too wishy-washy with it. You know what I mean? Instead of like you said, pushing it a little more horror. Or more outrageous comedy, or because Boris Karloff, I mean, he was okay in it. He was good. He was acting, but he wasn't that funny as the old guy. The old guy could have been a little more, you know, outrageous maybe, or something like that, or maybe he could have been a little scary or something like that. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, he didn't. He had he played off of
Price.
Peter Lorre a lot, and Peter Lorre was a very submissive role.
Pretty much, yeah.
And it would have been better if you made Karloff more menacing.
Something like that, yeah. I mean, you know, Basil Rathbone tried his best to be menacing, and he was okay, but you know.
Yeah. The acting was great in it.
Yeah. It was just too middle of the road.
Yeah, too middle. Like, they had Joyce Jameson was supposed to be the daughter. She was the daughter of
Boris Karloff.
Boris Karloff, who owns the funeral home, and Price married her to get the business, and then he started to run it in the ground. He was an alcoholic,
and he was trying to kill Karloff.
Yeah, he kept
poisoning his coffee to take over to get the business, to take the inheritance or whatever.
And she supposedly was studying opera, but because she married Karloff, she decided to stay home and be his...
No, Price. She married Price.
Price. She started to be his wife.
And she couldn't sing with her crap anyway, so...
That's an interesting thing. But then they made her singing goofy, with like glasses shattering and the table shaking and the cat, you know, freaking out and running away.
And it wasn't that, I mean, was this really funny in 1964? Was this really like, you know, side splitting and so?
For your parents, yeah.
Maybe my grandparents, I don't know.
Yeah, to your grandparents, but you know. But, it was, or if you were like 8. I think maybe if you were 8 years old, this may have made you laugh.
Tickled your funny bone.
Yeah. So
anyway, so that's their gimmick. That's what they're doing. And then after that, they hit upon how did they get to the Beverly Hills' house Because they purposely went there to kill the guy, scare him to death or something like that. Right.
So Price, you see the home life of Price and Peter Lorre. Price,
Peter Lorre's like a ex-con or something that he got a burglar.
He's a burglar or something, and I guess Price was the only one who would hire him, and at the beginning of it, like Peter Lorre's trying to make a coffin, and he's making this crap coffin or whatever. There's all these like dumb little. Yeah.
It was almost like it was. You know what it feels like? It's almost like it was written by and it was Richard Matheson, which should be better than that. Maybe he's not a comedic writer. It was kind of written like maybe one of those old Red Skelton shows from the 50s or something like that.
Yes.
Except I think those are funnier because Red was kind of like a wacky, crazy guy or whatever.
Yeah. That or Danny Kaye, that kind of like a little.
Danny Kaye, yeah, there you go. I mean, neither Price nor Lorre, nor Karloff, nor Rathbone were really out and out funny.
Right.
They were just okay.
Right. And in a serious, if this movie were more serious,
that would have been fine.
Yeah, it would have been fine. So anyway, the home life, Price is an alcoholic. He drinks. The wife he ignores his wife. She's still kind of in love with him, but she gave up her singing career to stay at home and be the housewife. And Karloff is the old man, and he's half the time and stuff. So anyway, there's a fight. Price has a fight with his wife, and they're always screaming and yelling at each other. So he leaves to go to town to drink, and he runs into Basil Rathbone, who's his landlord.
That's right. The landlord wants some money. You got to pay rent.
Yeah, you haven't paid rent for a year, and if you don't pay it within 24 hours, we're going to start court proceedings. So then Price goes, okay. So then he comes back. He's drunk. Now he had gone to the bar, so to drink. So when he comes home, he calls Peter Lorre into his study. And it's like, all right, we got to go and drum up some business. So tonight at midnight, I met this old guy in the bar. That's the guy who was married to Beverly.
That's right. You met him at the bar, yeah.
Yes, and we're going to go and,
scare him to death.
Drum up some business. And we're going to do it at midnight. So they, get in their hearse. And they ride out to his house, and they, sneak in, and there's some funny stuff there. And then Vincent Price smothers him, the old guy. And the first he accidentally opens the door to where Beverly Hills is sleeping, and you get a nice cleavage shot of her. And then he finds the old guy, smothers him, and then they're outside the house, like down the driveway, waiting. And then they hear a scream, and it's like, all right, well, it's time for us to go. So they start riding up, and the maid comes out. She's like all crying and upset. Oh, I got to go find the doctor because, we think the mistress found her husband, thinks he's dead. So Price goes, oh, well, I'm a mortician. I can help with that. So he goes upstairs and he listens, and then Beverly Hills is standing there. And he's listening to the heart. Says, "Oh, your husband's dead. It's I'll bury him for you." And he's using all these large poetic words, and she's playing dumb, like, "What did you say?" So then
they set up a funeral for him.
Yeah, they set up a funeral, and they're waiting for her to come, and he's like, where is she? So,
and the wife is playing the keyboard, and she's singing her crappy opera.
Wife is playing the keyboard, and Peter Lorre's pumping. He's always making.
Peter Lorre's in love with.
Peter Lorre's in love with Joyce Jameson,
and Joyce Jameson showing a lot of cleavage throughout this movie.
Yes,
too.
she did. He's always making moon eyes at her, and she's friendly to him, but not leading him on. Anyway, so Price is like wondering where the widow is, so he rides out to the house and finds the house empty, and the servant girl who saw him the other day said, "Oh, the mistress left and she moved back to Boston. She took all the stuff with her." And he's like, "Yeah, but where's
my money?
Where's my fee? She didn't pay my fee." And she's like, "Well, she didn't pay me either." So he's all upset and cranky and drinking again. And then he gets a note from the bailiff, I think, or somebody gives him a note. It's from Basil Rathbone saying if he doesn't pay up in the morning, they're gonna start proceedings to get him
foreclosure or whatever. Yeah.
And so he decides to do the same thing to Basil Rathbone, like smother him and bury him and get money. So again, they wait until nighttime. They sneak out, and Basil Rathbone's house is all bolted up. They can't get in. They see an open window on the second floor, so there's a supposedly funny scene where...
yeah, right. Peter Lorre's got to get up there.
Yeah, Peter Lorre's got to get up and crawl into the window, and he's looking for he finds the bedroom where Basil Rathbone is, and
Rathbone's like reading some Shakespeare.
He's reading Shakespeare. Macbeth, I think it is. And he's acting it all out, and then he picks up a sword and he starts like having a fake sword fight with himself. And Peter Lorre hides behind the screen, and in his fervor, Basil Rathbone starts. It's like a silk screen with Chinese figures on it. He starts stabbing at the figures, and the sword goes through, and Peter Lorre's backing up. And finally, he stabs the screen again, and it falls down, and it reveals Peter Lorre, and it gives Basil Rathbone a shock, and he passes out, and they think he's dead.
And this is going to be a running joke now throughout the whole movie. They think he's dead, but he's catatonic, so he keeps coming back to life or whatever.
Right. So they go get the Vincent Price meets the servant, finds him, and then he runs out. And then he meets Vincent Price outside waiting. He goes, "What's the matter?" And he's like, "Oh, my master's dead, and I got to go get the doctor." So they go back inside, and they look, and you see the doctor looking at the Basil Rathbone, and he's like, "Oh, he's dead." And it's like, "Are you sure?" Because that's when you find out he suffers from catalepsy or catatonic.
Yeah, catatonic. Yeah.
And so they're like, "No," the doctor's like, "No, I'm sure he's dead." So then Vincent Price and Peter Lorre take him back, put him in a coffin, take him back to the funeral home. They have him in the cellar, and they're both tired from the night's events. So then they both walk upstairs to go to bed, and Peter Lorre's like saying goodnight to the corpse, or like, "I'm sorry," or whatever. And then the orange cat like jumps up on Basil Rathbone. Mm-hmm. I think apparently he's allergic, or it makes him he starts switching. So then they realize that Basil Rathbone isn't dead, and he gets up and he goes, Where am I? Who are you? What's going on?" And Vincent Price says, "Oh, you're in the funeral home. You're dead." He goes, "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are. Everybody knows you're dead except you." And this funny thing happens, and then there's a fight, and then Basil Rathbone goes catatonic again, and he does that several times. They put him in the coffin, and then the coffin starts rising up again. So then
they sit on it.
Yeah, they sit on it, they lay on it, and then they finally get knocked off it. And Basil Rathbone comes up and fighting him, and they conk him on the head with a mallet. And then the next day it's the funeral, and you see Basil Rathbone in the coffin, and Boris Karloff gives this hilarious speech. Oh, first Joyce Jameson is singing this supposedly sad song about he's not really dead, he's asleep, and he's going to view eternity, and it's supposed to comically refer to the events of what happened previously. And then Karloff gets up and gives this eulogy, which is again supposed to be funny. It's not, because he doesn't remember Basil Rathbone's name, and blah blah blah. So then they bury him in the crypt, and they're upset because
he's not underground. He's in the crypt.
Yeah, instead of putting him in the ground where they could just dump the body and bury it, they're putting him in a crypt.
And they lose out on the coffin, which they've used like 13 times. They said.
For 13 years.
13 years, yeah.
So they put him in the crypt with flowers on, and then Joey E. Brown is the guard at the cemetery. So then they go back, and then you see everybody's dancing and having a good time because they got a lot of money from Basil Rathbone. So Joyce, Jameson, and Peter Lorre are dancing, and he's professing his love and stuff, and
Price is drunk.
Yeah, Price is
counting his money,
and Boris Karloff is playing the fiddle and stuff, and then it's.
And throughout this movie, there's also, because it's going to be important at the end. There's also, I think we hinted on it before. There's also this running joke that whenever they're at the table eating and Karloff is drinking something, Price is always go, oh, wait a minute, you need some of this in here. He's always trying to poison him or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. He's always threatening to kill.
He's always trying to put poison in his coffee. Yeah, and Joyce Jameson's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, he keeps a little bottle of poison.
He calls it medicine.
Right, so he's always pouring it in Boris Karloff's.
Trying to.
Well, one time he succeeded, and the Joyce Jameson grabbed the cup away. Yeah. And then Boris Karloff goes, "Oh, I can't get my medicine. It's an old guy. What's going on?"
Right.
So anyway, it's sort of quieted down, and then
Price is counting his money and the coins, and Joyce Jameson wants to get sexy with him, right? He turns her down. He rebuffs her.
So then
she goes to him like, do you reject me? And he's like, yeah, I reject you. He goes, okay, fine. So then she goes to Peter Lorre, who's got the hospital.
So they plan to run away, so they go upstairs packing. In the meantime...
Yes. Basil Rathbone.
Rathbone, he starts screaming, and then Joey Brown... hears it, and he's like, oh, wait a minute now, you guys are supposed to be sleeping. What's this? So he opens the mausoleum, and he starts lifting. The coffin has been nailed shut. So he starts, like, prying it open, and then suddenly it bursts open, and Basil Rathbone appears, and Joey Brown does his signature with a wide mouth and passes out, and then for some reason you only see the back of Basil Rathbone. They don't show his face.
Right.
So he's like walking, and he walks from the cemetery to Vincent Price's house, or the funeral home. And the way he's like in the yard, there's an axe, so he grabs an axe. So then, as Joyce Jameson is packing, Vincent Price, what's his name?
Basil Rathbone.
Basil Rathbone is walking upstairs.
And he grabs an axe.
Yeah, with his axe, and then he sees, and he starts opening the door to the bedroom where Joyce Jameson is, and she goes, "Oh, come in, Felix. So s'il vous plaît, entree," whatever she says. And then they open. Then you see Basil Rathbone with the axe. So she screams, passes out. The scream alerts Peter
Price and Luree.
Vincent Price. So
and they're like bumbling their way up there.
Yeah, to do a Three Stooges routine of trying to get in through doors and climbing upstairs. Yeah. So then they see Basil Rathbone. He starts chasing them with the axe. So they're hiding and trying not to get killed. And then Vincent Price runs downstairs first. And then Peter Lorre thinks, he hears the footsteps running away, so he thinks it's Basil Rathbone. So then he lights a candle and sees Basil with the axe there, so he runs downstairs. He trips and falls.
And you think that he's dead.
You think he's dead. So then Basil Rathbone comes walking down with the axe, and Vincent Price shoots him. And then, I don't know if he falls down. No, he gives this long soliloquy. And then he starts coming at him again. So Vincent Price shoots him again. Then he gives this other, and he's quoting Shakespeare, and it takes him 10 minutes to die, and then he falls out dead. And then Joyce Jameson wakes up. She runs downstairs. She thinks Vincent Price killed Peter Lorre. So she starts saying, I'm going to the police. And then Vincent Price strangles her and you think she's dead. And then
Price just goes, well, like, just do like the others do. And then he just kind of like passes.
Then there's a knock on the door from some guy who comes in.
Oh, yeah,
he sees what's happening and goes, I'm going to the police. So he runs out.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So then Vincent Price looks and goes, well, I might as well join him. So he sits down. He
just passes out.
And he falls asleep. And then
Jameson wakes up.
Yes, she wakes up. She goes over to people.
And Lorre wakes up.
So then they both agree they love each other, and they walk out the door and close it behind them. And then Boris Karloff comes downstairs going, what's all this noise? So he sits down next to Price and he goes, oh, you're drunk again, I see. Or maybe you're tired. Maybe you need some medicine. So he reaches into Vincent Price's pocket where he keeps the little bottle of poison, takes it, and then gives it all to him. And he goes, oh, maybe I'll have some for myself. And he drinks and he goes, oh, it's empty. And then Price realizes what happened. He wakes up and he goes, he says, oh, there's no medicine. I gave you all the medicine. There's no medicine for me. And then Karloff walks back upstairs. So Vincent Price does this long, going back and forth. And he finally collapses over
Rathbone.
Basil
Rathbone.
Yeah, and then I think the cat walks by or something, and then you see Basil Rathbone's. I keep seeing Basil or Basil. I'm not sure which one.
Basil.
So then his nose starts twitching again because the cat walked by him, and then it's the end. Yeah,
and then there's like another credit sequence at the end, and the cat's walking around or whatever. And
exactly. Yeah.
So, maybe if I was like 6 years old and it was playing at the summer movie club, for like a quarter back in 1966, and we were running around all hopped up on coke and candy, and maybe it would have been fun. And I think it probably would have.
It would have if. You had something like it was almost like the Three Stooges boiled down to two.
Yeah, but without the intense comedy, they weren't as funny.
Yeah, it wasn't that funny a movie. It could have been funny, maybe with different actors. I don't know.
Maybe with different actors, yeah.
But
those two were okay in comedy, but they weren't comedians.
Right.
They were mostly dramatic actors, but they were okay in comedy, but they weren't super funny.
Right.
Neither was Boris. He was fine. He did his role properly, but there was nobody, that's the thing, there was nobody in this movie that was really funny.
Right.
They were competent.
Yeah, I mean, and some of the humor, like at one point the daughter's singing and she's got a ladle in her hand and she's swinging around, and at one point the soup from the ladle splats Boris Karloff on the side of the face. I mean, that's...
And maybe if Rathbone was coming out of the grave and he was looking a little more ragged and a little creepier. I mean, they tried to make him look creepy and nasty, but maybe if he was a little creepier or something. Maybe if they would have buried him and he would have clawed his way out of the grave and he was all like messed up, it would have given it a scary feel to it or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As it is, it was just too middle of the road with they didn't know what direction. It's like we said earlier,
I think the fact that he went cataleptic so many times, you kind of knew every time he fell down. Yeah,
he was going to come back.
And then at the end, when you saw his nose twitching, even though he was shot twice, you kind of expected it. You didn't really, because that was the joke, and it's like.
I mean, look, it's an okay movie.
Yeah.
But you're not gonna laugh a lot, and you're not gonna be scared at all. But if you like these people, it's worth checking out just to say you saw it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I own this movie, but I never watched it until yesterday. Because I'd read about it, and I was like, maybe. But it's just like, it just piqued my interest the other day when I thought, Beverly Hills in it? Yeah, maybe why don't we do it? Maybe she'll have a good role in it, and it'll be fun to watch these guys. Even though I've read this movie's kind of lukewarm, maybe it'll be fun. But nah, the critics were right. It's kind of lukewarm. It does get better reviews now in retrospect because of the people in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
But for a minute there, I was confusing it with the other one with was it The Raven?
The Raven's funnier.
Yeah, The Raven's much funnier. And
that's because Roger Corman directed it.
It's not so slapstick.
No, and it also has Jack Nicholson in it, and and it's more exciting too. It has the fight with the wizard fights and all that, And Peter Lorre looks ridiculous in the Raven suit. I mean, it was a lot more ridiculous than this movie was.
Yeah, if you're gonna do that sort of slapstick, goofy Three Stooges stuff, you really gotta go.
You gotta be ridiculous.
You gotta go full Three Stooges. You can't.
And this movie wasn't ridiculous at all.
No.
It was just like, okay.
Yeah.
Average, okay script and average directing and decent acting, but you needed funny people. You needed funny people in this movie. And
I know what was missing from this movie. No one got a pie in the face.
Exactly. or like a slap in the head with two fingers from a guy with a bowl haircut. See, now if they would have gotten Mo Howard in the Joey Brown role, that would have been a plus.
Yes, because when he would see what's his name? John Carradine get out of the grave, he could have gone, and his hair would have...
John Carradine would have been better than Basil Rathbone in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, they were using the same people from not Trilogy of Terror, what was it called? Tales of Terror.
Yeah.
So basically they probably shot it like within the same month or something like that. So it would have been nice to have seen Carradine because he's creepier than Rathbone in that role.
Yeah.
Or in the Boris Karloff role or something like that,
We should do Tales of Terror next time.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, that is a scarier movie. That is a way better movie than this. We should have done it in the first place, but, I just kind of was, I gotta pick a movie. Okay, what about that one? I've never seen it before, so we'll pick that one or whatever. So,
you take your risks when you do it.
It's Vincent Price month, I guess, because all the movies we've done so far are Vincent Price. So,
All right,
cool. Tales of Terror will be.
All right, sounds cool.
It'll be a better movie with Vincent Price all melting as a butterscotch man. That's. I just remember that picture from Famous Monsters, and I'm going like, oh wow, okay. And that's Roger Corman, and that's based on Edgar Allan Poe.
See, Roger Corman has the knack.
He did have the knack, yeah.
The other guy, Jacques Tourneur?
He was a good director, but
he was
kind of middle of the road.
But yeah, kind of middle of the road. So all the elements were there. It was just probably the wrong director.
It's just like when you back in the day when you bought an album and all these guest stars are on it. Oh, this is going to be a great album by so and so. Let's say somebody, I can't think of a name to use. Like, I'll just use it because just the name popped in my head. Oh, there's this Donovan record and it's got Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page and blah 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 and all these people, and then you listen to it and you're like, yeah, but the songs aren't that great. It doesn't matter who's playing on it,
right.
And I'm just using an example because there is a Donovan record with those people on it, and it is a good record, but that's just what popped into my head,
right. Yeah, but I know what you mean. It's like they don't do their virtuoso stuff, or they do. It's like
the songs just aren't there. The story's not there. The production's not there. In this case, the production was fine.
I think the story is there. I just think they took the wrong approach. I think they just needed to be more
creepy.
And they would have
maybe instead of just like taking the body and throwing it in another grave, maybe if they would have actually been selling it to some medical people or something and giving it a different. But then again, was this movie aimed for kids and they didn't want to go that far? I don't know what.
Well, that's it. I don't think they had a specific audience.
And that's on the writer too. That's on Matheson, who just made it tepid, kind of.
Yeah, definitely. It may read better as a novel or as a short story than.
It was novelized, but then again, that's like some writer they hired to make it. Whatever.
Whatever.
I mean, the ending with the payoff with the poison, that was kind of a cool gimmick. Okay, oh, I see. That did have a payoff.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, so Price was doing it, and now he's going to get it at the end. That was okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That was all right, but the point of getting there was kind of like,
Yeah, I think if they had him go cataleptic, less, like, that whole scene with him trying to get out of the coffin was like, no, just.
Or how about, like, instead of going cataleptic, he actually died, but there was some kind of, magical thing or curse or whatever, and every time he came back, he was more deformed or
that would have
decrepit.
that would have been good. And then
you would have given a horror element to it.
Yeah, and it would have made it more creepy and.
Like he was a black magician and he was working on the side, he was working on a formula to keep himself from dying. And then all of a sudden it's like he dies, but the formula that he was working on is keeping him alive, but he's deteriorating and he keeps coming back.
See, that's perfect. That would have worked.
There you go.
That would have worked. Yeah, because they don't realize he's a black magician.
Yeah, he was the owner of the thing, and but he was also into black magic, and they didn't know it. And somehow or another, he created a magic spell to keep him from dying, and all of a sudden they're burying him, and he's coming back all dead and deteriorated or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, that would have given a horror element to it, a terror element to it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, because each time he dies, he's rapidly
more deformed
before he comes back again.
And then at the end he comes back and he's got like Peter Cushing and Tales from the Crypt. He's all scraggly and scary and creepy and long fingernails and all that. I mean, that would have been, whoa, okay, now now we got terror here.
Yeah, exactly.
But they went for safe, so.
Yeah, I don't know.
I read about it a little bit. I'm wondering if I'm going to try to read more about it. Maybe they toned it down, but I think that's what the actual point of it was. I don't think it was meant to be totally horrific or whatever.
I think they were trying to do more of a Raven. What was it? When did the Raven come out? Was that later?
62 or 63. It was around the same time.
Yeah, so I think they were trying to do the same thing and just missed the mark.
And they missed the mark, yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. Yeah.
The Raven had funny elements in it, but it wasn't.
It also had a spooky castle.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff.
The Raven didn't have that sort of goofy slapstick. Like.
Peter Lorre looked pretty silly in his Raven.
Yeah, but one character doing that is fine.
Yeah, got it.
Everybody doing it, too much.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen somebody like in a bit role like Don Rickles in this, just to give it some comedic edge or whatever, or something. Because he was around at the same time there,
If you had Don Rickles
as the Joey Brown role, or Mo Howard in the Joey Brown role.
Yeah, Mo Howard, and then or had like. You couldn't have Don Rickles as the Felix.
No, I mean, Mo Howard maybe as the.
It would have. Yeah, it would have added.
It would have given an edge to it. You know what I mean? You'd have gone, oh, there's Mo. That's so cool. Instead of Joey Brown, and you're like, who's Joey Brown?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe my grandpa knew who Joey Brown was, but,
Yes.
Was Joey Brown ever that funny? Now, Mo was. Joey Brown, I mean, I'm just saying. Again, we're trying to rewrite this story, but...
knowing how API works, Mo Howard probably would have been too expensive for them. Yeah,
probably, yeah. Even though he did do a couple of B movies towards the end of his life, but bit roles in them or whatever. But at any rate, it would have been nice to see somebody like him as a surprise or something. But at any rate. So anyway, that's the Comedy of Terrors, It's on Amazon Prime. If this review made you interested in watching it, go right ahead and check it out. If you're a completist for your Vincent Price movies and you haven't seen it, it's worth seeing.
Yep.
Price tries his best. He makes a lot of goofy faces, and he tries to be slapsticky or whatever. So
again, the acting was fine.
But it wasn't funny.
Yeah, it just wasn't funny. It just missed the mark. It should have been more serious and just some highlights of comedy here and there rather than
better comedy.
Yeah, better comedy. So.
All right, well, we know what our next movie is going to be. It's going to be Tales of Terror.
Tales of Terror.
So we'll be back with that one in a couple of weeks.